What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue here with my 2024 college football schedule preview and projected record series. Up next are the Northwestern Wildcats, and before we preview their schedule for 2024 and give them an early projected record based on how tough their schedule is, let's take a look back at what Northwestern did in 2023. Here were my projections and predictions last year for the Northwestern Wildcats. My projection had them at 2-10, and then my prediction for them was 3-9. So I was not very high on Northwestern last year due to the off-the-field issues and everything, and also Pat Fitzgerald being fired last year before even the season began. But Northwestern did a lot more better than that. They went 7-5. This was definitely a very big surprise team last year in 2023. They went 7-5 in the regular season, then 8-5 overall if you count their bowl game victory at the end of the year. So again, Northwestern, a very big surprise team in 2023. Here was the schedule from last year for Northwestern. You look at their non-conference schedule, played UTEP and Howard, pretty much their easy non-conference games, and then they also played Duke here out of the ACC on the road. They ended up losing that game back on September the 16th, and then you look at the 4 losses last year coming in the Big Ten. So yeah, they only had 4 losses last year in the Big Ten. They lost to Rutgers there in that season opener, and then lost to Penn State here at home on September the 30th. Then they lost a close one here on the road at Nebraska here on October the 21st, and then they lost to Iowa here on a neutral site venue for some reason at Chicago back on November the 4th. So that was the schedule from last year in 2023. Not that bad of a schedule for Northwestern. Let's now look ahead to 2024. Here is the schedule for the upcoming season, and before we go game by game, let's take a look at who Northwestern will play in the non-conference this upcoming season. This is their non-conference schedule. They will play Miami of Ohio University Redhawks. Then they'll play, of course, Duke here at home. That would be a week number 2 matchup. And they do get them at home this year. It'll be a rematch from last year. I believe this is like the 3rd consecutive year in a row that they will play the Blue Devils here in a non-conference game. So they do get that game here at home here in the non-conference this season. And then they play Eastern Illinois. So the non-conference schedule pretty similar to last year. A couple of cupcake games, and then, of course, play one ACC team, and that is, of course, Duke here. And they will play the Blue Devils here again at home. So you kind of favor Northwestern just a little bit here, just because with all the coaching changes and everything at Duke. So that's the non-conference schedule for 2024. Let's now go back to the schedule here and go game by game now. So they will kick things off with Miami of Ohio University Redhawks here on August 31st. And then after that, they do play Duke here in week number 2 of the season on September the 7th. Then it's at home against Eastern Illinois here on September the 14th. So they do play 3 home games to start out the year, and obviously they do play all 3 of their non-conference games to kick off the season in the first 3 weeks. And then after that, they open up Big Ten play here on the road at Washington here on September the 21st for their first true road game, and then they get a bye week here in the last weekend of the month of September. They come out of the bye week, get to the month of October. They'll play Indiana at home on October the 5th. Then it's Maryland here on the road on October the 12th. Then it's back at home against Wisconsin here on October the 19th. And then after that, they go on the road to play Iowa on October the 26th. Then they get to the month of November. They'll play Purdue here on the road as well. So they got back-to-back road games here with Iowa and Purdue here on October 26th and November 2nd. Then they get their second bye week here in the second weekend of the month of November. They come out of the bye week and play Ohio State here at home on November 16th. So you like that really good spot for a bye week there before a big-time game at home against the Buckeyes. And then they play Michigan here on the road on November the 23rd. And then they close things out with Illinois here on November 30th. So that's the schedule for Northwestern in 2024. It's a little bit of a tough schedule. They got Ohio State and Michigan on the schedule, which does make it a tough one. And then you got Iowa, of course, on the road. Some tough road games on this schedule. But, out of Ohio State and Michigan, those other road games are pretty much, very winnable games for Northwestern, especially for a team that's coming off a pretty good season last year. So let's get to the projection now here for Northwestern. This is not going to be my official prediction. This is simply going to be a projection based on how tough the schedule is, and pretty much it's going to be based off of where each team was from last season as well. Here is the scale that I use here for my projections. If it's a 1% game in the red, we count those as automatic losses there in that percentage. 20% games in the orange are going to be games where they're going to be about a couple touchdowns of underdogs, and then 40% games in the yellow are going to be games where they're going to be a heavy heavy underdog in by about a touchdown. And then 50-50 games will, of course, stay in the white. Games, I think, can go either way. And then 60% games here in the purple. These are going to be games where Northwestern will be favored by a touchdown. And then 80% games here in the blue, they're going to be favored by a couple touchdowns and also by double digits. And then the 99% games here in the green, these are pretty much going to be counted as the automatic wins here. So we'll start with the automatic wins here for Northwestern for 2024. And I think you got a couple of them on this schedule. Miami of Ohio, University Redhawks, and then Eastern Illinois. I think both of those games, Northwestern will be favored by more than 3 touchdowns. And obviously, they should be able to go out there and take care of business in both of these games as well. So there's really no reason for them to lose these 2 games. And again, they're counted as automatic wins when we do these projections. They're not guaranteed wins, but again, it is a projection, so we're counting them as easy wins here for, Northwestern in this projection. So I think a couple of these games, I think Northwestern will be favored by at least by more than 3 touchdowns. And again, these are counted as the automatic wins here when we do these projections. Looking at the rest of the schedule, I don't really see any other games on here where I think they'll be favored by a couple touchdowns in the Big Ten, but I do have games in the purple, the games where they're going to be favored by a touchdown here at 60% in the purple. And those 2 games are going to be Indiana and Illinois. So I got both of these games. Northwestern, I think, will be favored by at least a touchdown. Indiana and Illinois are 2 teams that are not coming off really good seasons last year. You look at Indiana, you look at, the head coaching change. That's definitely going to be a little bit of concern there for Indiana, but they do have a first-year head coach, and that's the reason why I'm also favoring Northwestern in this game. But also the reason why I'm favoring them is just because they're playing at home. Same thing with Illinois. Illinois kind of, coming off a step back from where they were the year before. So I do expect Northwestern to be favored here by at least a touchdown. These are not going to be easy games. They're kind of like trap games for Northwestern, but if both of these games were on the road, they definitely would be like 50-50 games in my opinion. So, but again, both of these games are at home for Northwestern, and that's the reason why I'm favoring them by at least a touchdown. And both of these games here in the purple at 60%. Let's now go to the games where Northwestern will be about an underdog in. I don't have any red games and automatic losses here for Northwestern, but I do have one game here in the orange, and that game is on the road here at Michigan. So I think Northwestern will be about a couple touchdowns of underdogs against Michigan. When I look back at this projection, though, that definitely is a yellow game in my opinion, but we're basing this off of where the teams were from last year. And Michigan won the national championship, so we're going to definitely favor Michigan here by a couple touchdowns. It is on the road. It's a very tough place to play, but, when you look at the game now, it's definitely a very winnable game, to be honest, with all the coaching change at Michigan and the roster turnover. So I do expect Northwestern to compete in that game, but as of right now, it's a couple touchdowns of underdogs here for Northwestern in this game on the road at Michigan. Now we skip ahead to the yellow games, the games where there'll be a slight underdog in and by a heavy underdog by about a touchdown. And I got a couple of them on here with Washington and Ohio State. I think there'll be a clear underdog against Washington here on the road. I know that's a game that probably should be a 50-50 game now with all the coaching change and the roster turnover like Michigan is. But, like I said, it's based off of where the teams were from last year, and I think Washington will be favored in this one. And only by a slight underdog. Only a slight underdog, though, here for Northwestern. They definitely could pull off a win here on the road at Washington. It is a very tough place to play, but I think they do have a chance to win this game. And Ohio State, that's a big-time game here at home. On November the 16th. They do get a bye week before playing that game. That's definitely a very winnable game, and it's definitely an upset alert type game if you're an Ohio State fan as well. So, again, that's a big-time game there on November the 16th. If Northwestern could pull off an upset, that would definitely shock the whole college football playoff rankings as well as like the whole college football world. So, I think Northwestern will be a heavy underdog in both of those games, and then the rest of the 5 games on here, Duke, Maryland, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Purdue. These are all 50-50 games here for Northwestern. I think they can go either way. Duke beat Northwestern last year pretty easily, but I do expect that one to go either way just because it's a home game here for Northwestern. Maryland, that's a tough one for me. Maryland obviously has got a lot of question marks. We don't know how good they're going to be. Wisconsin, that's definitely a 50-50 game. And then Iowa and Purdue, back-to-back road games. Purdue, the reason why that one's in the white is just because it's on the road. And then, of course, Iowa here. That was very close to being seeming like a yellow game for me, but I'm going to put this one here as a 50-50 game as of right now. So these are the 5 games where I think they can go either way. Let's now get a projected record here for Northwestern for 2024. And again, not my official prediction. This is simply a projection based on how tough the schedule is. So we count those two green games as automatic wins, and then you count the purple games. You average them out at 60%. Then you average out that one orange game at 20%, and then you average out the yellow games here at 40%. Then you average out all the 50-50 games here at 50%. And the overall projected record for Northwestern comes out to be 6-6 here for 2024. So a 6-6 projection here for Northwestern. I do kind of expect them to make it to a bowl game this year. This schedule is very tough, and that's the reason why I do have them barely making it to a bowl game as of right now. I think best case scenario would definitely have to be 7-5. It would really shock me if this team probably did go 8-4, to be honest. But we did see a lot of improvement from last year for the Wildcats, and then of course 5-7 or 4-8 would definitely be worst case scenario. I think 5-7 definitely would be maybe a factor probably for Northwestern. But again, the projection based on this schedule came out to be 6-6. So give me your thoughts on Northwestern down in the comments below. What do you think their projected record is for 2024? And thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.